Some days are full of surprises. The British government has reached a provisional agreement with the European Union to cooperate with Frontex. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak wants to officially apply for this status as a third country at a meeting of the European heads of state and government in Granada at the beginning of October. This is reported by the Bloomberg news agency, citing people familiar with the matter, as they put it. A draft for an agreement with Frontex should be available by the end of this month, which can then be signed by the EU Commission and the government in London, after an approval process on both sides. The then EU states founded Frontex in 2004 as a joint border agency. Frontex also coordinates the implementation of the so-called Schengen Acquis and the associated requirements for controlling all external borders of the Schengen area. And this includes Norway, Liechtenstein, Switzerland, and Iceland. And these countries also contribute to the overall budget for Frontex and take part in joint operations. It is not known how much money Great Britain wants to pay Frontex annually, so yet we don't know. The request to cooperate with Frontex is another attempt by the UK to normalize EU cooperation. With Brexit, Great Britain had to leave the European area of freedom, security and justice from January 1st in 2021, and the country became a third country from the EU perspective. In order to combat and prosecute cross-border crime and terrorism, British authorities are allowed to continue to participate in important EU information systems and also cooperate with agencies. This is regulated by the Trade and Cooperation Agreement between the EU and the United Kingdom, and that, as you remember, was negotiated at the last minute before Brexit. This privileged partnership includes continued participation in some police databases of the Schengen states. This is different with the EU agencies, which also include Europol. Under the withdrawal agreement, Britain is allowed to send liaison officers to Europol headquarters in The Hague and share the secure messaging system through which the police of all Europol members communicate. British authorities are also allowed to take part in operational meetings at Europol. More important, however, is the opportunity to participate in Europol analysis projects. With a fight against migrant smuggling, these also affect the area of migration. The planned Frontex agreement follows the recently decided resumption of Great Britain in the billion-dollar EU research and innovation funding program Horizon Europe, in which numerous projects to combat migration are also being researched and developed. Also planned is British participation in the Copernicus Earth Observation Programme, with which Frontex, among other things, aims to detect and stop migration to the EU at an early stage. This allows Great Britain to use images from EU satellites, for example, to better control the transfer of small boats carrying refugees from the Netherlands, Belgium and France. A Frontex agreement would have no direct impact on curbing these crossings. The phenomenon of small boats involves irregular departures from the EU that are not punishable by law. However, Frontex mandate also includes joint prosecution of smuggling with the help of Europol. To this end, British police authorities are already working closely with those bordering the English Channel and also with Germany. In 2021, Frontex had already sent a plane from Denmark to patrol the English Channel for this purpose. In response to media requests, Frontex confirmed ongoing negotiations with the UK Home Office for a joint agreement. The agency is working closely with the European Commission and the Member States, they said. However, the spokeswoman didn't provide any further information at this time. Frontex, the European Border and Coast Guard Agency, is a European Union agency that was, as I said, established in 2004 to support member states in managing their external borders. It is headquartered in Warsaw in Poland. And Frontex's main tasks are to prevent illegal immigration and cross-border crime, to facilitate legal migration, to coordinate and cooperate with member states on border management, as they call this, to provide operational assistance to member states and develop common standards and procedures for border management, but also to promote research and innovation in border management. Frontex has a staff of over 1,500 people, including border guards, but also experts and support staff. It also has a fleet of aircraft and vessels that it uses to patrol the EU's external borders. Frontex budget is funded by the EU and the member states. In 2023, its budget was 1.2 billion euros. Frontex has been criticized by some for its human rights record. In particular, it has been accused of pushing back asylum seekers and refugees at the EU's borders. However, Frontex maintains that it is committed to upholding human rights in its operations. The importance of Frontex has increased in recent years due to the increasing number of people trying to reach the EU. In 2022, over 2 million people arrived in the EU irregularly, and Frontex played a key role in helping member states to manage this influx of migrants. As I said, Frontex is a controversial agency, but it is an important part of the EU's efforts to manage its external borders and protect its citizens. It is the largest border management agency in the world. It has been involved in a number of high-profile operations, including the 2015 migrant crisis and the 2022 Russian invasion of Ukraine by helping the fleeing Ukrainians. It has also been praised for its effectiveness in preventing illegal immigration and cross-border crime, and not only criticized. Overall, Frontex is a complex and controversial agency that indeed plays an important role in the EU's security and migration policies. And 3 kinds of countries can be part of Frontex. Of course, first of all, the member states of the European Union, then the Schengen-associated countries, and countries with which Frontex has concluded working arrangements. Member states of the European Union are automatically members of Frontex, and Schengen-associated countries are countries that are not members of the EU, but are part of the Schengen area, which is a zone of passport-free travel within Europe. Countries with which Frontex has concluded working arrangements are countries that cooperate with Frontex on border management, but are not members of the EU or the Schengen area. So that class would be Britain. Brexit happened after a referendum in the UK on June 23rd in 2016, in which 51.9% of voters voted to leave the European Union. And the referendum was triggered by the Conservative Party manifesto in the 2015 general election, which promised to hold a referendum on EU membership if the Tories win. The decision to leave the EU was a complex one, with many factors contributing to it. But that's why they're not in Frontex anymore. But some reasons why people voted to leave the EU were, for example, these concerns about immigration. Many people in the UK were concerned about the level of immigration from the EU. They argued that immigration was putting a strain on public services and driving down wages. And some people in the UK felt that the UK had lost control of its own laws and borders as a member of the EU. They wanted to regain sovereignty and make their own decisions about these matters. Yeah, the sovereignty we see now with applying for Frontex. And some people believed that the UK would be better off economically outside the EU here. They argued that the UK would be able to strike their own trade deals and control their own borders, which would boost the economy. Congratulations and welcome to reality. And some people were dissatisfied with the EU's handling of the Eurozone crisis, and they argued that the EU had not done enough to help Greece and other countries that were struggling financially, although the UK as a whole didn't think so. And some people felt that the UK was not getting a fair deal from the EU, despite their rebate and everything. They argued that the UK was paying too much into the EU budget and that it was not getting enough benefits in return, which was complete bullcrap. The United Kingdom then officially left the European Union on January 31st in 2020, and this is known as the Brexit date. However, the UK remained in a transition period until December 31st in 2020. And during this time, the UK and the EU continued to negotiate their future relationship. The transition period ended on December 31st in 2020, and the UK became a third country in relation to the EU. And I hope after this amount of videos, I don't have to explain to anyone anymore the difference between a third country and the third world country, because I still get, and I usually don't say this, but in this case, very stupid comments under videos. But if you want to see another video, the next one is right here in the end screen. I'll see you there. I'll be back.